Welcome to Live with Miami's Community News, South Florida's #1 source for local stories. I'm Michael Miller, bringing people together and sharing the voices, events, and connections that shape our community.
Cheers, guys.
That'd be true.
I'm all in to be the Miami-Dade County mayor.
That event. Tell everybody about it. What's next? What do we have to do?
Thank you for joining us. This is Live with Miami's Community News, and I'm Michael Miller. Special guest today is Rabbi Yossi Harlig with the Chabad of Kendall and Pinecrest. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
And let's talk about the recent occurrences. Oh, my goodness gracious.
Oh, my
There
God.
is Grant Miller. All right.
My favorite rabbi. How are you? My only rabbi.
I'm doing great. Thank God to see you. You want to do the mitzvah of making a blessing on the...
Michael will do it.
Oh, my God.
Mr. Miller, thank you for joining in.
Thank you for joining in.
What they call it a photo bomb, but
Yeah.
folks, he just happened to walk in right then. It was
Yes.
not planned. All right. So let's talk about the recent events that have occurred in the last 24 hours in Israel.
Yes. This is literally from, even though it's not October 7th, it's 2 years to the date on the Jewish calendar. The tragic day of October 7th, 2023, happened on the Jewish calendar of Simchas Torah, which is tomorrow, which is the festival we dance with the Torah, which is the Bible, when we finish reading the Torah. And in that dark day, the worst day in Jewish since the Holocaust. We never had such a day where we all know the story. Hamas terrorists and a lot of the civilians of Gaza came into the southern part of Israel, and they killed, murdered, raped, burned alive 1,200 people. And it's been 2 years since they held on. Originally, they had 251 hostages, and today, just a few hours ago, finally the great miracle that they freed the last 20 remaining hostages that are alive, and going to return the bodies of 28 people that were buried in Gaza.
Just so people can further understand the impact. So it was 1,200 people that were murdered, all right, out of a country of how many?
A country of 6 million.
6 million. When World Trade Tower was 3,000 to 4,000 out of a country of 300 million.
Right.
The significance.
I think the numbers are like 50, 60,000 Americans being killed.
Yes. So it was a gigantic event that captured a lot of the globe, all right? And so this war, wars are terrible. And so here we are. There's 28 more families that are waiting for the remains of their loved ones. When we were talking about this morning, the thought of seeing the live hostages return and their loved one did not. Doesn't that just like tear you apart when you hear that?
Of the families that did not get them back. Yes, I know. It's, I remember 4 years ago, whenever Surfside was, and I remember being there with the families because I was a chaplain. I'm a chaplain in Miami-Dade Police Department. And I remember when the family got a call that they found their loved one, so I came into the room as a rabbi to be there as a clergy. And you would think when they would find that out, they would be screaming and they would be hollering. But there was, in a way, sad, but a sense of relief because they were able to bury their loved ones and bring them closure. So these 28 families, I think most of them knew that unfortunately they were killed, either dragged in dead into Gaza or killed being hostages. That I think most of them already knew it, but they were still in agony because they want to have their loved one back. See, in Jewish tradition, the body is holy too. And when they're going to be able to get the bodies back, hopefully in the next 24 hours, it will bring a sense of relief and closure for them that they can start healing.
And that was very important to people of Jewish faith and to the state of Israel to get back.
Correct.
Everybody, alive or dead, they wanted them back.
Correct. For us, that's super important. And they always said that no matter what, there are soldiers that put their life in danger just to retrieve bodies. So for us, the bodies are something that it's very holy and sacred. And it's something that's very, very important. So we don't say, well, there's just 28 people that died. What do you care? No, we got to really be there for them. And, one of the things we saw is the unity in the Jewish world, throughout the world, of everyone feeling the pain and the anguish and the suffering that all the families went through. And to a lot of families, not only that were affected October 7th, but after that, over 1,000 or close to 1,000 soldiers lost their life going into Gaza and trying to retrieve the hostages or trying to get rid of Hamas, which will not only benefit Israel, but it'll benefit the Palestinian people that are living in Gaza and all over the world.
So in Israel, there's a place that has been named Hostage Square. Tell us about that.
Yes, I was in Israel about 2 months ago. That's in Tel Aviv. And the Hostage Square was where the families got together wanted to make sure that people don't forget that their family members are still held by Hamas, and to put pressure to do everything we can to get them out. So that was a place people got together for that.
So when you look at the families, ones that had people, there's the loved one returned, and the ones that did not, the stress on that family is gigantic, right? And the hostages, being held. It wasn't just like in prison, like going to prison in the United States into a jail, right? This is a constant abuse and intimidation. So with some of the hostages that got out before, have they talked about what that was like?
Yes, I've heard them speak, and they said they chained them, they beat them, they tortured them, they were underground in tunnels, couldn't even breathe. They lost a lot of weight. Some of them lost 30% of their body fat, and they've been very, very abused throughout the ordeal. And for them, a lot of them felt like they're never gonna make it out. And for them, when they came out and heard how the world was, everyone was doing what they can to free them. That said, that was, for some of them was surprising, but some of them found out, they said when they were in the tunnels, they were able to overhear and hear the way the world is still, the Israel and the parents are still fighting for them. It gave them a comfort. But, people don't understand that what's happening now is, 20 people were freed today that were taken out of Israel against their will. These are innocent people. And unfortunately, we had to release today 250 people that have life sentences. More. We released, I think, close to 2,000 prisoners. But out of that, 250 of them had life sentences. That these are people that murdered and would like to continue to murder, and a lot of them. And that's the contrast that's happening today.
So we know in any government, in every democratic society, there's different ends of it. You have the people that are more liberal, some more conservatives. So even within the parties that were there, I would hear constant things, which is like annihilate them. No, get our hostages back without regard to the stuff that we have to do for the bad guys. So tell us in your experience how people balance that out.
Listen, this is one of the most painful and difficult topics, because on one hand, the terrorists know that the Jewish people, Israel, values life, and to do everything they can to get back life, to save a life. And we go through anywhere in the world to save a person. And that's something that's super important. On the other hand, the danger of working with terrorists is that you put other people's lives in danger. Why? Because if they see by you kidnapping this family, they could release their, murderers and killers. They're going to kidnap other people. So you have a responsibility. Israel's number one responsibility is safety for the country, and that's where the balance is. How's the country safer? Getting these people out or not? And that's there's a lot of strong arguments on both sides of it. And I'm not here to give my opinion. There's a lot of strong arguments that you could understand. And if I was a family member, I would be standing in Hostage Square screaming, do everything you can to get them out. But there are people that feel, at what cost are we putting 6 million people's lives in danger? Because use, for example, Sinwar, the one that orchestrated this whole October 7th, he was released by a prisoner exchange of 1 to 1,000. So that's the big debate. It doesn't come from a place of people that don't care about the hostages. It doesn't come from a place of people that don't care about the people in Israel. It's a very, very painful topic, and it's something that they struggle with. What's the right balance to do? And a lot of you do the best you can to save life and to protect the land of Israel.
No. So 2,000 prisoners were released.
I think close to today, yeah.
Yeah, in exchange for, among other things,
20 alive and 28 dead.
That's and then we know that 10% or 15% of those guys that are there are bad guys.
The life sentences, these are facts. I mean, there was a lot of famous stories of them killing and lynching people, and they're released. But I think Jared Kushner said a great thing is that, how the barbarism and the killing and the burning families alive on October 7th, it didn't get us to that point that we want to continue do the same thing to other people for no reason. And this whole idea that genocide and we're wiping out Gaza, we're doing a poor job. There's genocide and there's millions of Arabs living there. And it's very sad what the children went through in Gaza. But the bottom line is, it's really Hamas set up the situation where they set up their whole infrastructure in homes, in where kids live. And if we get rid of Hamas, the Palestinians will be able to live in peace and security and have a great life together with the Jewish people.
I read some figure there are several 100,000 buildings that have been destroyed. So what's going to happen with these buildings that are all but down, plus the ones that are down? I mean, it's a lot of property. I understood some 60 to 70% of those buildings are gone.
You know why they're gone, those buildings? Because Hamas went in those buildings and built the tunnels there. So it's not like Israel had a choice. He just went and ran and picked on buildings. These are buildings where the terrorists put all the infrastructure and then they were building under it, and 50% of the tunnels are still around.
So inquiring minds want to know, what happened to all the dirt that came from the tunnels? How did they get it out without the radars or whatever that is up and taking pictures of all this dirt? Do they just move it around underneath?
That I have no idea. It's a good question.
All right. So now what's going to happen to that area where so many of those buildings are down? And by the way, yesterday I was watching, you saw literally tens of thousands of people, Palestinians, going back. All right. And what are they going to be going back to? 70% of where they lived is gone. How do people start again with that? And what is the world community going to do to help manage the threat that is still there?
Correct. So the first question is, we as a Jewish state in Israel also have to ask ourselves, what's going to change that in 10 years now? It's not going to be the same thing. Gaza is a breeding ground for fundamentalists that took control over the place and don't allow free-thinking, peaceful people to do what they want to do, is live in peace. So as long as we cannot clear that out and that stays in Gaza, this is going to continue going on. So I think the first thing is to figure out a way, and I don't have the answer to it, and that's our concern, is, first of all, today's a day of celebration. Today's a day that you thank God that the families came out, the hostages came out, and they reunited together with the family, and we're thankful to that. But after that, day two, and everyone is saying the same thing, all experts, is how are we going to turn that Gaza in 10 years from now is not going to be the same Gaza with the fundamentalists controlling it, teaching kids hate, and the greatest thing is not to free Gaza of Israel. Their goal is to get to Jerusalem and free Jerusalem of the Jewish people. And I think that's as important as how you're building up the buildings. Because if you're going to build up the buildings and keep the same hate there and those people in control, you're not getting anywhere.
Obviously, this is a generational thing, that hate that goes from one level
Hundreds
to the
of
next.
years.
And it just goes on. It's like the Hatfield and McCoys, the great-great-great-grandchildren go, why are we fighting with these people? Well, because my father did, because my grandfather did, without regard to the ideology, behind it. So how is the world going to manage it? Because I know it's not going to be able to be eliminated, all right? But how's Israel in particular going to try to keep them at bay? Any ideas?
No, I'm not sitting at the table. I don't have an answer to that. I think it's that's the question they're all waiting to see, because I believe, like certain countries that want to do peace, you could do peace. But when it's a religious fundamentalist ideology, that your whole ideology is based on wiping out the other people, they're the infidels, then you can't really negotiate with them.
Okay. Let's talk about the increase in anti-Semitism across the United States, certainly in the last 5 years. You had a personal experience with that last year. Would you tell people about that?
Yeah, so for us, October 7th was a shock, that how Israel was so vulnerable and allowed that day to happen, and they take a lot of blame for it. I'm not shocked that Hamas wanted to do it. What was the biggest surprise to everyone was October 8th and October 9th. That right after it happened, before we even had a chance to bury the dead, before Israel had a chance to even go into Gaza, there was demonstration in college campuses all over the world, Free Palestine and spontaneous. And I'm thinking to myself, how do we turn from the victim to the pariah overnight? And you saw that there was a lot of influence over the years from Qatar and other places pushing money into college campuses. They were indoctrinating the students, starting with professors, talking anti-Israel, anti-Jewish stuff, that it came out in the street right away. And those demonstrations were going on right away. After a few months, it got even worse all over the world. I'm wondering what's going to happen now that officially there's a ceasefire or the war is over. What are they going to demonstrate a march about? But that was a big shock to the Jewish world, to myself included, because I did not expect. I expected Hamas to do that. I was shocked that they were able to pull it off. But I know what Hamas wants to do, because not that I have great intelligence, it's because you just read what they say. They say it. They want to do it over and over again. It's not like a secret. But to see it all over the world, that was a big surprise in New York on the college campuses. And those kind of comments and statements were very surprising. And, people did not realize that this is, in 2025, this could be going on. The same exact thing. Now, there's two groups. There's people that are just anti-Semites. And then there's a group of people that are not anti-Semites, but they're being fed by TikTok and Instagram. And we did a terrible job at it, because most people get their news, young generation, I'm talking about younger generations, get the news not from community newspapers.
Thank you for that.
Right. They get it from social media. And we did not do a great job in bringing out our point of view and showing what really is going on in the world.
So how about for the young Jewish family, that's got little kids, right? And is there a fear factor in the mom and dad about what's going on?
Actually, in the beginning, I saw some parents were a little concerned telling their kids, don't wear your Star of David on college campuses and out. But I find now that people are much more proud and engaged. And what happened over the last 2 years, as dark as the last 2 years were with all what was going on, what I found, what was really heartwarming, is to see the unity of the Jewish people coming together, and also having strong questions. What does it mean to be Jewish? Why is everyone talking about it? Why if I'm walking in Miami, why is someone screaming at me the story of go back to the gas chambers? I'm not in Israel. I'm not fighting for the IDF. Why are you saying that to me? And the answer is because they look at me, that I represent all the Jewish people, which they're kind of a little bit right. We're all one big family. And the world recognizes that. So I feel there was a much stronger Jewish identity, more people showing up at the synagogue. It's interesting. I have here on the table, this is something that we use for the holiday of Sukkot. So this is a etrog, which is a citron. And we have here a palm branch, a willow, and a myrtle. And the rabbis teach us that this represents 4 different types of Jews. And you have to bring them all together. If one of them is missing, then it's affecting everyone. I think that unity, what this represents, Sukkot, this holiday, we make a blessing of this. It represents all 4 different types of Jews, no matter who you are. We're one unit. We have to be united together. That's what came out strongly, on the last 2 years.
There's a show on TV, I know I mentioned this before, where it's called Discovering Your Roots. And whenever somebody finds out that they were part Jewish, they all smile. When they say, oh, your great-great-grandparents were Catholic, I don't say, oh, that's wonderful, all right? But when it's on the Jewish end, I see the delight that they have. Why is that? When somebody discovered that a great-grandmother was Jewish, why do they feel so good about that?
Because for them, for the people that found out then, some of them could be they were searching themselves before. And they wanted to know. They had a certain feeling, a kingship, a certain feeling about being close to God and feeling close to Jewish religion. And then one day they find, oh, now I know why. They have, as we say, have Jewish blood. And a lot of times people want to feel they're part of something. They don't want to feel like, so who am I? So it gives them an identity. And even though it's identity that comes with its own bags, with its own challenges, but it's something that people feel very proud. Nobody wants to walk away from it. I don't want to have that Jewish identity. I think that's what came very clear the last few years.
So I was raised as a Unitarian, even though my parents were both Jewish. And religion was not part of what we had in the house. I didn't even know Christmas was religious at all. All right, it was just a time we had like a party. So my wife took me on my journey to New York, and we stayed. I forgot which one of the communities where 777 is. All right,
Crown Heights.
Crown Heights. So I go into the Crown Heights Chabad
Headquarters.
There could have been 200 Orthodox there. I was bawling like a baby. I could barely control myself. Some man comes over. He says, "This is your first time, isn't it?" I go, "Yes, you could tell." He says, "Here, keep the yarmulke." And he brings me over next to whoever's reading the Torah, and I'm thinking, don't ask me to hold it. That's all I'm saying. Don't ask me to hold it, because I'm going to collapse, right? And the same moment, and that same day, Susan takes me to a store that only had Jewish things in it.
Judaica.
Yeah. Oh, my goodness. I'm standing in the middle of this store. It could have been 3,000 feet or 5,000 feet, bawling like a baby. Then we stayed in some hotel, and I'm looking down on the second or third floor. And I said, I think my great-grandparents were here. That connection, because of those experiences, and we went together, right? Yes. And it was there at the rabbis at the grave. Those 4 events for me were significant. That sort of opened up this, oh, right? And it was this connection that I never had before. And then my son-in-law is Jewish, and he and what he is doing is sort of taking over what I missed out. And when I see the connection that he has, and then our grandchildren have, there is that strong connection. And my wife, of course, for 30 years, she finally got me to pulled me in. And she now, on the weekend, she stays in Coconut Grove, and she takes the 7-minute walk to Chabad. I realize how significant that is for her to walk that path that so many other Orthodox have done. And so I see some significance for it. It certainly filled a void that I didn't quite know that I had. And I remember one time I was at the bottom, he said to me, "Here, hold the Torah." And you came over, you said, "You doing all right?" And I said, No. And you took it from me because you knew I was going to faint because of the significance of that being, or me being close to it, or vice versa. So I just say to all the world out there, if you think you want to discover your Judaism, do something. And it can be a little bit or a whole bunch, all right? And so I did a little bit to recognize that family history. And I look back, all my great-grandparents, they're all Orthodox, all right? And when I look at that family history and I show my son, I said, "You weren't the only one that went to Washington, you, all right? Look at your great uncle." And in the small world, there was a fellow that lived here in Coral Gables. He was in the printing business. For a while, we were in the printing business. Now we're in the bringing people together business. And I said, that was the connection that I felt with him. His name was Weiss. And when we do background checks and you see that, it's a really good feeling. So, and that really started with this fellow named Jenkins who came to our office about 15 years ago. And he goes, "I think we're related." Okay. He starts talking to me. I say, "My aunt is here in the building. She's about your age." I bring her up. They started talking. Sure enough, when they were kids,
wow,
they played together. They shared some grandparents. And he opens up the length. I said, "That's her right here." All right. It was so significant. And then I get a call from my cousin. This guy, Jenkins, called me. I said, "Yeah, he came to visit us." All right. So there is some significance when you find out where you were from. It certainly helps you travel, on a new journey.
So we believe it's the neshama, the soul that you have in you, that got awakened. And certain events awaken the soul. Just like October 7th awoke, the Jewish world all over. But then people have their own personal events that happen to them that's trigger for them, because you always have it in you. It's sleeping, and then you woke it up at different places where you went. And when you wake it up, it comes alive. About
10 years ago, there was I think it was out of Kentucky, there was a group that was out there protesting, saying the Jews are not going to take our jobs. All right. Why are these type of groups so threatened by 0.02% of the population? How did they conjure that up in their heads that is relevant at all?
It's interesting. You see some of these bloggers, they're not even Jewish bloggers, that say, it's crazy. What is it about this little country, just 6 million people, that the whole world, from Australia to Russia, everyone is demonstrating in the street like free Palestine, from first of all, most people don't even know what they're talking about. And, we believe when God came to the Mount Sinai, he gave the Jewish nation a responsibility to be a light unto the nation. And there's a certain consciousness that people feel uncomfortable when they see the Jewish nation doing our job and our responsibility and living up to it. Some are just literally anti-Semites, and some people are just ignorant, and they just heard mentality and they listen to what everyone else says. Look weird throughout history when anti-Semitism came in. There was something going on in the country. Let's blame the Jew, and that was easy. Everyone, joined along, and they said that. But we, they focus on death and destruction. We focus on light and building and resolve, and not to back down. And you could focus on hate, and we focus on love and care, and make the world a better place. You look at our own campus. We run 3 organizations. What are we doing? We have a Chabad, we have a Jewish outreach organization, we have an organization with special needs kids. We help everyone. We have an organization starting out with food insecurity. What are we doing? This is like what we represent. This represents what the Jewish people do all over the world. We're here to help people.
One of my life lessons is something that you told me that you did, which was, Michael, we didn't go out, have this plan to start Friendship Circle. What we wanted to do was create some programs where Jewish kids could volunteer there. And once you had that goal, then you went out and you found something to do it. And so I remind people now, I said, what do we want to accomplish? And we'll find the tools to get that done. So I want to thank you for that. And I give that example many, many, many times. So Friendship Circle is about 20,000 feet, 87th Avenue and 112th Street.
Correct, yes.
Significant. I was there a couple of months ago on a Sunday with you, and to see the different levels of the participants. Some really needed a lot of help. Some were on the other end of the spectrum. And the reality is that as I talk about people on the spectrum, about autism, I am stunned how many people have children that are on the spectrum, and the spectrum is this gigantic thing, all right? And I see it all the time. And if somebody needs some help, they call the Friendship Circle, and there are a lot of places they could go, all right? But they ought to check it out and go for a little tour. People will be stunned that right in the middle of East Kendall, all right, a few blocks from US 1, all right, you have this wonderful, beautiful facility.
You know what I would say? It's interesting. As I think a lot about our campus is called the Friendship Campus. We're still waiting for someone to name it for $5 million. It could be called the Michael Miller Campus if you want.
Check's on the way.
I see Miller name on the UM building. Is that related to you?
Or Miller Road and Miller Street here, and then the beer. And
big money they give to UM.
And the beer guys.
That's Miller. That's you, right? Same name. But you know what I really see a lot now, and I think you'll identify big time what I'm about to tell you. I think our campus gives people meaningful experiences for the volunteers. So we run 3 different organizations. We run a Chabad Jewish Outreach organization, which that kind of inspired working with special needs kids. So you have the special needs kids and the volunteers. It's as much about the volunteers living a meaningful life and changing other people's lives than about the special needs kid. We started now the Mitzvah Kitchen, which is the community come together. I want to tell you, I'm getting so many calls of organizations and companies that want to come and do a day of giving back, like team building. It's all about where the food goes is one thing, but the main part is people want to come into a room and know that they can make a difference. In 2 hours, you could stand there, cut up a salad, cut up chicken, and with that, we make 300 to 500 meals, depends how many people on the shift, and that food is literally going to go to a family that doesn't have food. And I realized, create a campus where you allow the community to have meaningful experiences. Some people, meaningful experience is prayer. Some people, meaningful experience is volunteer with special needs kids. And some people, meaningful experience is peel a carrot, cut up a vegetable, put it in a package, and give it out. I can tell you our calls are off the hook now of companies wanting to come here. We're doing a Thanksgiving, doing a lot of events for that. So people, if you ask what's the most important thing, it's not about making money.
We have 5 minutes left.
So the most important thing is people want to feel that they can make a difference in the world. Meaning. And this show does that. I mean, your office does that now. You get people to get on a mic and talk about what's meaningful to them. And I'm sure for you, Michael, I don't know how much money you're making in this new stage of your life, but this is more meaningful to you than even the money you make. Am I right or wrong?
Yes. And part of that is I learned over a period of 15 years that I've known you, there's this other aspect of life. It's not an accident that for some reason I got attached to the autism awareness. I know there is this direct connection to the work that you've done. I'm going to guess that 30% of our shows are directly related to not-for-profits and to helping people. And we've interviewed, the Miami Foundation and the Children's Trust and Be Strong International and a bunch of the other ones. And when we hear people's stories about how they are helping people, and so many of the people that are heading up these organizations have personal experiences with it, and it's typically always there. And so Grant and I have, at this particular stage, we're enjoying this more. These last 5 years have been really rewarding. And Emily's over here, who's been with us. She's producing the show. Can you put the camera on yourself and say hi? Let's see if we can get that done. Where is she? She's coming up. There she is, almost. There's Emily.
Do you agree with that, Emily?
Yeah. She does.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
And also we have Rachel, she comes in the afternoon. She's a teacher in Florida City for 3rd, 4th, and 5th graders, to the kids that need it most. She lives in South Palmetto Bay, drives to Florida City, drives up here after that, and then goes home.
Wow.
And so we understand as far as this giving part, that it's more than rewarding. And when we recognize the things that we can each do to try to make this world a better place, I think that it's our obligation to do those things. And so I want to compliment you.
That's what people are looking for. People want to know that their life matters more than even making money. And you give them those experiences, people are looking and dying for that. Yeah. And I picked that up and I said, that's a campus we want to build.
So speaking of building campus, Autism Dad, a fellow that I met, happened to be a day, you were here the day that he randomly came on. He has a show. Right. So he's bringing in parents with autistic children. And then also, we get a call from one of the schools. They wanted to bring in with the therapists and their families to bring in these kids. They let them experience this. So that they know. And I'm a little nervous about it, but I'm going, wait. So they have their therapists, they have their teachers, they have the host who's a shrink, if you will. And we're really looking forward to that, because I know a lot of people are afraid of people that are autistic. And again, there's a whole range of folks, and you deal with this every day. And I think that the more we get exposed to that, the more kinder and gentler we will be with ourselves and with those people.
I agree.
Yep.
Couldn't say it perfectly.
So, Rabbi, thank you for doing
this.
Let's
make the blessing. We're going to make the blessing on there. Here. Are you righty or lefty?
Right.
Okay. Let me give you the kippah.
Okay. All right.
Baruch.
Atah. Adonai. Eloheinu. Melech. Haolam.
Asher. Kedishanu. B'mitzvotav.
V'tzivanu.
Al. Natilat. Lulav. Did you make the blessing at this holiday, Anna? Or not yet?
We went to Levi's house.
Oh, so you did you make the blessing on this?
No, but we'll do it. Okay.
Baruch atah. Adonai. Eloheinu melech haolam. Shachianu. V'kimanu. V'gianu. L'zman hazeh. Put it together. Give it a shake. Beautiful.
All right. Thank you, Rabbi.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Only good things and kindness, and it's always a pleasure to be here with you, and may we continue to always make a difference in people's lives, and let's pray for real peace.
Yes.
And and people should focus on making the world a better place.
Would you like to say something in Hebrew?
Yes.
Go ahead.
So we wanted to, this is a holiday.
Can you put the camera right on him?
Yes.
There we go.
This is a holiday where we celebrate being happy together and being joyous together and being united together. So we're going to say the prayer, Hine ma tov u'manayim, sheves achim gam yachad, how beautiful it is that we all are together. And we'll end with Oseh Shalom b'mromav, Hu yaseh shalom aleinu v'akol Yisrael v'imo amen. But we ask God for peace and tranquility in the whole land of Israel, all over the world, that everyone should be able to focus on goodness and kindness and making the world a brighter place.
It's terrific. Also, this is Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Please support the causes that are important to you. And
hold on, let me add. Tomorrow night, we dance Simchas Torah.
Okay.
At our synagogue, where you're completing the reading of the Torah. The whole community is invited. 7:30 p.m. 8700 Southwest 112th Street. We dance with Torah, food, drinks. It's a great celebration.
Okay.
And celebrating the hostages
Let's
coming
look at
home.
that right at that camera.
Yes.
So Grant and I are now subscribing to the Disney rule. And that Disney rule is when you hug someone, don't stop until they do. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. Bye now.